It's time to start.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Stanley's Stinkers, a unique look at college football where we pick the losers. That's right, the losers. Each week we'll look at 20 of the biggest games, we'll break down the teams, we'll analyze the coaches, and we might even flirt with the cheerleaders. But in the end, we'll predict the losers, or in this case, the stinkers in each of the contests. Stay tuned because this week's games are coming up. Stanley Stinkers was 15-5 last week, bringing our overall mark to 78%. This week, we boldly picked losers in several playoff and conference championship games. These are the games that show up this week on the Stinkometer. South Alabama at Hawaii. If you're a student in Mobile, Alabama, you might be used to the Gulf breezes, but a trip to the Big Island is, well, it's like winning the final showcase on The Price is Right. Joey Jones and his Cats are completing their first year of Division 1A football, and a flight to play the Skirted Warriors will be a chance to showcase just how far this team has come. For Hawaii, however, it'll be a chance to see how far their team has fallen since the departure of their own Jones, June Jones, 5 years ago. The weary Warriors are accustomed to winning, but this year they're suffering through their worst record in more than a decade. Jaguar fans, pack your flowery shirt. Enjoy the show. Book 'em, Dano. Stanley Stinker, Hawaii. Boise State at Nevada. This is a game with two powerhouses from the Western Athletic Conference. We've all heard about the success of the Blue Broncos, but this year the two losses have taken a little kick out of their gallop. The Dog Pound at Nevada, meanwhile, has one of the best offenses in the country, with Stephon Jefferson leading the way. The senior running back is the sixth-ranked rusher in the country with better than 1,500 yards. If the Pack wants to bust the Broncos, they'll need a balanced attack. It's possible, but unlikely. Stanley Stinker, Nevada. Kansas at West Virginia. The first half of the season saw West Virginia set the college world on fire with huge wins and amazing air attacks. Since Week 7, however, the Mountain Men have won just one game in 6 tries. But this week's opponent goes a couple of steps further. Kansas is riding a 10-game losing streak, and this game will serve to make one team feel a lot better going into the offseason. It's been a rough first year for Charlie Weiss and the Jaybirds, and it doesn't get any easier. Stanley Stinker, Kansas. Nicholls State at Oregon State. This is a game that was supposed to have been played much earlier in the year, but was postponed when Hurricane Isaac closed down the Colonel's campus in Louisiana. Nicholls State comes into the game with a single win this year, and the FCS school will have the job of healing the Beavers' hurt from the Civil War last week. Oregon State committed 6 turnovers against Oregon and shot themselves in the proverbial beaver. Look for the home team to feel a lot better after this one if they don't suffer from fumbleitis. Stanley Stinker, Nicholls State. Florida State at Georgia Tech. The Big Chief down in Tallahassee hasn't been as happy this year as he wanted to be. In the preseason, Florida State was supposed to have been the favorite to compete for the national championship. Instead, they're playing for the conference championship against a mediocre Georgia Tech team. The Hive, meanwhile, is buzzing with excitement at the chance to play for the ACC title despite suffering 6 losses this year. Tech has a lot to win and a little to lose. These kinds of games are dangerous for the favorite. But nonetheless, Stanley Stinker, Georgia Tech. Nebraska at Wisconsin. The Shuckers' season has not been as productive as the fans wanted, but neither has the season for Wisconsin. Last year, Badger running back Monty Ball was the Heisman frontrunner. This year, he just hopes to retain his stock in the NFL draft. This is the Big Ten Championship, but it's more like a consolation game because the only team in the Big Ten ranked in the top 10 is Ohio State, and they can't play in the postseason because of NCAA sanctions. The winner of the championship this year will have to do their best to shuck the asterisk. Stanley Stinker, Wisconsin. Do not touch that dial or the mouse or the keypad. We have 14 more games coming up, including the battle for the Dakotas, plus Oklahoma State and Baylor, and of course the SEC championship game in Atlanta. Those games and more coming up after this from our sponsor. Stanley Stinkers is brought to you every week by 5 Front PR. When it's time to take your team from the forefront all the way to the 5 front, call Mike and the crew at 5 Front PR. By CBSSports.com Fan Shop. Look for the link on our sponsors page and find thousands of items from your college team and your sports team. CBSSports.com Fan Shop. By Passion by Eve. Lotions, potions, and even things that go buzz in the night. A classier way to shop. Check them out at passionbyeve.com. And by Hole-in-One Golf. This is the one stop for the golfer on your Christmas list. From putters to GPS, you'll find it all in Hole-in-One Golf. And fans, don't forget to join us online for the all-new Stinkin' Thinkin' blog. Always free, and you don't even have to register. The Stinkin' Thinkin' blog, online at stanleystinkers.com. Oklahoma State at Baylor. Well, the Baylor Bears proved over the last 2 weeks their growl is as bad as their bite, upsetting Kansas State and then Texas Tech. Now the Cowpokes come rustling into town trying to stir up the den. Baylor's offense ranks near the top nationally, but their defense shows a tendency to hibernate. For Oklahoma State to win this game, they'll have to score more points than their Big 12 counterparts. Look for big numbers in this one, but Stanley Stinker, Oklahoma State. Texas at Kansas State. 2 weeks ago, the Wildcats were on top of the BCS world as the #1 team in the nation. That lasted 7 days. Now Kansas State is playing for the conference trophy instead of the crystal football. Texas, meanwhile, is trying to show they still belong in the corral with the high-powered teams from the Big 12. With 2 weeks off to rest quarterback Colin Klein, Kansas State should be ready to grill a steak or two against the Longhorns. Stanley Stinker, Texas, move. Oklahoma at TCU. The Land Settlers won the battle they call Bedlam last week in overtime against their cross-state rivals, and this week they hope to settle the score with the Toads from TCU. The home team is fresh off a win over Texas, and they'll be looking for win number 8 on the season. This contest will feature 2 top-ranked offenses. TCU excels by land, Oklahoma by air. But if the Sooners get close enough, the Belldozer, Blake Bell, will have a chance to bring home the win for Oklahoma. Stanley Stinker, TCU. Alabama at Georgia in Atlanta. The Crimson Pachyderm and the Silver Slacked Canines square off for what really is the semifinal for the national championship. The winner goes on to play Notre Dame and Miami for the crown. Alabama comes into the game reeling from a few injuries while Georgia is hitting their peak after a few early season scares. The key to this game, as in most SEC championship contests, will be defense. UGA has a kennel full of All-Americans patrolling their side of the ball, while Alabama has a lot of players who weren't even starters last year. These two teams haven't played since 2008 when Alabama embarrassed the Dogs in Athens. Georgia's got a lot to prove after blowing last year's conference championship against LSU. If Georgia plays with confidence, and if Georgia plays with discipline, it'll be hard to stop the Bulldogs in this one. Stanley Stinker in an upset, Alabama. And while we're at it, here are a few more games to show up this week on the Stinkometer. Arkansas State will lose to Middle Tennessee. Connecticut will be bitten by Cincinnati. South Florida will get branded by Pitt. UCF will be stormed over by Tulsa. Florida Atlantic will get cooked by Louisiana Lafayette. Illinois will be topped by Appalachian State. Central Arkansas will be beaten by Georgia Southern. Cal Poly will be tamed by Sam Houston State. Texas State will be gored by New Mexico State. And in a battle for the Wild Wild West, the Jackrabbits of South Dakota State will get trampled by the North Dakota State Bison. Stanley Stinkers is intended for entertainment only. A free podcast and blog is available online at stanleystinkers.com. Stanley Stinkers is a production of Magdala Sports. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of Stanley Stinkers without the express written permission of me, Stanley Stinkowich, is appreciated. Join us again in 2 weeks for the first bowl edition of Stanley Stinkers when we use reverse prognostication to predict the losers in college football's biggest game.